Governance expert, Ruth Mbogo, who's a political analyst, Philip Magal, lawyer, as well as Mark Bichati, a communication consultant. Welcome to the show, gents and lady.
Thank you.
Now, very interesting headlines today. Starting off with the Standard, Uhuru tells, apparently this is a message to the DP, and he has said that the Dynasty hustler talk won't get you to power. And of course, this has been analyzed on both the Nation and the Standard, and of course, I'm sure in all the other papers. I'd like to know your take, starting with you, Chachi.
For you to make sense of the Dynasty conversation, you must answer a very basic question. After Uhuru and Raila, who next? Because that's how dynasties work. Yeah. When you have a dynasty, you have the grandfather, the father, and the son or daughter in waiting, correct? Yeah. So if you cannot answer the question of, the Odinga family, who next, or in the Kenyatta family, who next, then your narrative is stillborn. Yeah. Number two, how do you talk about dynasties in Kenya? Because the truth is, Raila Odinga does not come from a dynasty. Yeah. Because that would mean of all the 8 or 9 deputy presidents that we've had, then they should all have children who are political. Yeah. So where is Wamala Kijana's son for the dynasty to continue? Where is the son of Mwai Kibaki for the dynasties to continue? So you cannot say that simply because Raila Odinga has created a career of himself in politics and his father was in politics that he's come from a dynasty. Yeah. Number two, you cannot be on one side saying that these are political dynasties and then prepare your own children for political seats. It's double speak. Yeah. And this is the kind of, I call it lazy political strategy that does not make sense. Because, let me tell you, the story that we need to tell the hustlers in Nairobi, in Eldoret, and everywhere is the story of how we are creating an enabling environment, of how we are creating and changing the laws of manufacturing, and how we are reducing tax on manufacturing, how we are reducing the cost of energy production, and we are creating jobs for these hustlers to get jobs. You cannot say that if hustlers put a hustler in State House, then the hustlers will all be okay. Yeah. And that's, again, lazy politics. The idea that, there used to be this thought among us lawyers that the day we will have a lawyer in State House, we will all benefit from it. That's not true. You understand? There is not enough space to fit a quarter of our tribe in State House. So the truth is that we need to move away. And I'm not just talking about one politician, but all these politicians who want to galvanize the hopes and dreams of Kenyans into their personal ascension into any office, whether it's governor, MP, or MCA. So you want to give your community this idea that if I enter that office, we've all entered. That kind of politics needs to end. I wish and I hope for the day, come 2022, people will talk about basic things. They'll talk about let's unite the country. They'll talk about let's end corruption, and that's what I'm doing. When you watch American debates and they're talking about how far right they should go or how far left they should go, and then you come to Kenya, we don't know whether in the middle, the center, upside down. We have no political ideology, and I hope during this second term of Uhuru Kenyatta, all politicians will become policy-based, ideas-based, and trust me, calling yourself a hustler and an hustler, a dynasty and an dynasty will not help the dynasties, and it will not help the hustlers. Yeah,
well, I agree with you on that, but realistically speaking, knowing Kenyan politics, is that, and particularly in this term, I don't believe that it's going to change.
What I can say about this is that Uhuru, Ruto, and this camp have been able to effectively and preemptively frame this as a fight between the hustlers and the dynasties. And they have been quite successful with it. If you go out there, you'll hear people talking about belonging to, that they belong to hustlers, so on and so forth. But then this only serves to betray the superficiality and the non-thoughtfulness of Kenyans as voters and as citizens of this country. What does it help you whether you support a dynasty or a hustlers team? What do they have to offer? We have to interrogate the leadership that is on offer for us. What are these people bringing on the table? And this is what President Uhuru is saying. who is this person calling himself a hustler? What does he have to offer you? Does it mean that if he gets to office, you will share his salary?
Yeah.
Does it mean that he's a good leader? And that is where Kenyans ought to be critical. They ought to look at the leaders and the type of leadership that they're offering. Again, the only way that the other side can counter this, and I think they have also been effective on that note, is by calling or framing this as a corrupt versus an anti-corruption-driven election campaign. And for sure, we can tell that there are corrupt individuals in this country, and on that, Kenyans need to be very keen. We ought to exclude all the corrupt from leadership positions. Otherwise, if we get lost in this mumbo-jumbo of big names and small names, small talk, Kenya is not heading anywhere.
And I mean, it's quite easy to interrogate the leadership that is on offer because most of these players have been in office in some capacity or another, right, Ruth?
Yeah, for me, my biggest concern about this debate is the fact that we are now already setting a new center stage for divisive politics in 2022. And I have always argued and said that the thing about politicians is that they will always find something to divide you. If in the last 10 years, tribalism was the line along which Kenyans were divided during elections, and suddenly Kenyans have woken up and realized that, at the end of the day, if you and I fight, it is only you and I that will suffer. It is only you and I that will end up dying, and the people we are fighting for live and continue holding office. So when Kenyans realize that, suddenly the tribe narrative is not going to work for us as Kenyans, politicians now try to find a new angle to now divide Kenyans even further. And I always say that, our concern should not even be tribalism. Our concern should never be that, oh, we have tribal politics. Our concern, our approach should be, how do we turn around these conversations to issue-based politics? Because unless we begin demanding for issue-based politics, we will continue to be divided along hustlers versus dynasties narrative. And for me, my other concern is when these people who call themselves narratives, who give themselves the title hustlers, are people who have supported dynasties all their life. If they were to truly call themselves hustlers and truly want to ascend to power under the title hustlers, they should have started way back in their youth. In their youth, they should have been fighting the dynasties that they are now fighting at the moment. Back in 92? Back in the 90s, when the Y for this youth movement,
Y2K.
Y2K? Yes, Y2K 92, yeah? Yes, that group that was supporting Moi. Ruto was part of this group. And you see, Moi was basically one of the, if you think of it in terms of him having been in power for a very long time, Moi could have easily been classified as a dynasty. And he still is at the moment because his son is in politics, and his son is actually one of the people rumored to be wanting to run for elections. My other concern is also the fact that these people calling themselves hustlers, when you look at their wealth they amass, some of them have more wealth than the dynasties we are talking about. Because hustlers versus dynasty conversation is a conversation around who has been having generational money, who has been, how did you get your wealth? Basically, that is it. Because you're trying to relate to us Kenyans who majorly or majority of us acquire wealth through hustling. So if I begin to question how you have acquired your wealth, do you truly fit the definition of a hustler? Because if I take a life audit on you, if Kenyans were to demand for us to take a lifestyle audit on you, on how you acquired your wealth, would you fit the category of a hustler? How did you get your wealth? Can I, as Ruth Ambogo, start hustling right now and in the next 10 years truly have the amount of wealth that you have? So, and also we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans, is this a narrative? And even those who are calling themselves hustlers, they need to ask themselves the question that, is it something that an ordinary hustler would relate to? Is it something that a person who is now a shoe shiner right down there thinking of making it in life would relate to? Are you truly a hustler in our eyes, So this is a narrative that is setting center stage for divisive politics in 2022, and it is one that needs to be deconstructed from the word go, because it is not going to work for us. It is going to divide us, further now along economic lines, and not healthy for our country.
Absolutely. Mr. Ostiani, your take?
The last time I was here, I illustrated why this hustler and dynasty line of thought is utterly what I will call, with your permission, nonsense. Why it must not be allowed. I gave examples And I said, and I still do, that we are products of nature and nurture. Our environments of growth and socialization impact on our trajectories in life. Divock Origi was the son of a footballer. Because he is a product of nurture and that nature, he found himself becoming a footballer.
Yeah.
Professor Kilemi Mwiria was an educationist. He has a son called Mwenda, who has become, just like his father, a lecturer in this country. Professor George Albert Omore Magoha was a medic before he even became the celebrated educationist. He is a professor of urology. He is blessed with one son. Because the son grew up in an environment where the father and mother were medics, the son is now a neurosurgeon. Because that is the environment in which he was brought up. Martin Luther King Jr. was a great human rights activist. His daughter, today living, continues with what she saw in the floor of their house, which was activism. I said, my own sister, because my mother is a celebrated nurse, my sister who follows me, because of being the product of nature and nurture, has turned out to be a nurse. It is therefore absolutely unfair to say that in everything else the children can follow in the footsteps of their parents. That it is possible that Louis Otieno would follow in the footsteps of his mother, who was a TV anchor just as he became. And it is fine, but it is not right for the child of a politician not to become a politician. Indira Gandhi, the daughter of Mahatma Gandhi, just walked the miles the father walked and continued in that walk. So this whole hula baloo about dynasty and hustler nonsense portends a disadvantage for the children of the very politicians who are busy peddling that narrative. I do not want it for the simple reason I will be a politician. My daughter or son may end up taking up from the father. And I want them to be judged not based on who their parents were, but based on the content that they have. Whether they are able to persuade Kenyans that they are the best to serve them in whatever capacity they will be serving. Listen, this lifts the debate from where it should be anchored, which is, are these the best choices we have for our country at this time or in the future? And reduces it to a very minimalist perspective of who is your father and are you your father's son. If we want to judge people based on their father's track records, good or bad, then Obama would not be president of the United States of America. His father was a brilliant man, but socially, his father was a broken human. But they did not look at him like that. They went for the better person in him. And so every Kenyan must understand that they have a duty to this country, a duty to ensure that when they engage politically for the sake of political contests, which is the only way democratically that we achieve leadership in this country, of course, arguably, they must interrogate the human being in every person, their ability or lack thereof, their willingness to lead this country transformatively, and whether they have demonstrated that is who they really are.
Absolutely. And it seems
in the same narrative that that Osiang has given. I'd like to give an example of American families